One moment, folks.
Great. So today's speakers, first up we have Joshua Spire, who's the Manager of Strategic Communications here at AGU. Then we'll have Shane Hanlon, Sharing Science Specialist. And lastly, we'll have Tania Chris, Public Affairs Analyst. And I'll turn it over to you, Josh.
Thanks so much. So glad to be here. Again, my name is Joshua Spicer. I work in strategic communications here at AGU. I'm going to give you guys an oversight of the Washington, D.C. and the more than, I believe, 500 satellite marches going on across the world on every continent in the entire globe. So let's get started. Start with, I just wanted to give you a brief background about why AGU is supporting the March for Science. A lot of people might have questions why. I'm not going to delve in too deep, but I just wanted to give you the top-down view about why AGU leadership decided to take what some think is a bit of a different tack for the organization to get involved in an area that traditionally has been more policy-oriented or advocacy-oriented. And the real reason is that we felt that this march is something unique. We haven't seen anything quite of its kind before. There's a lot of anxiety. There's been a lot of questions about what's going on within the administration and the appointees of the administration and how this is going to affect science and the ability to collect the best science. And more than anything else, we felt that the values of the march, as they were defined, really hew very closely with AGU's own values, mission, and again, you can see these core values that we have listed here. I won't go through them all, but again, we thought that the march in and of itself and AGU were a really simpatico pairing, and it was time for us to speak out in support of strong science, research, and those who make this happen. I'm going to talk now briefly about the March for Science here in Washington, D.C. Let me just say that this is not to diminish the other marches that are going on, but this is just where AGU is concentrating its efforts at this time. So the Washington, D.C. March for Science. This is again happening on April 22nd, Saturday, which is Earth Day. It's going to be in 3 phases: a pre-march event, the event itself, and then a post-march event. I'm going to start with the pre-march event, and as I speak to you, I have some breaking news, which I'm going to tell you. Up on the screen, we see the pre-march event is happening at the headquarters of the AAAS building, which is very close to the National Mall, within a few blocks. The content remains the same, but the times have changed. So what's happened is now is everything is going to kick off quite a bit earlier, starting at 7:30. AAAS is opening up its building to anyone who wishes to come on down and get themselves situated before heading to the mall. Beginning at 7:30, the doors will be open, and then at 8:30, that's the time for you to come pick up your T-shirts, your posters, your water for your day, the snacks that we're going to be providing, and there's actually also going to be a light breakfast, so a good time to fuel up and get yourself ready to go. Almost more important, though, however, is we're hoping that you will take that time to engage in some actions right then and there before you even hit the National Mall, including a postcard campaign in which we're asking you to write to your legislator why he or she should support the effort to bring strong science to the forefront of the legislative agenda. And we're going to have postcards there and computers that are going to be available so you can very easily identify who your federal legislators are. You fill them out, we take them straight up to Capitol Hill for you. So that part of the program will go in from 8:30 until about 9:15. At 9:15, we're going to usher everyone down into the main reception area, auditorium, I'm sorry. And at that point, there'll be some speeches by AGU and our partnering organizations, including AAAS head Rush Holt, and of course, Christine McEntee, the CEO and Executive Director of AGU. It's going to be a really good time to get everyone fired up before we head down to the mall, which is going to happen shortly thereafter, just around, we're hoping, 9:45, 10 o'clock. So what you're seeing here is pretty much the same. It's just kind of been advanced an hour earlier in the day. The main event in the mall, it looks like it's beginning now at 10 in the morning. So from 10 until about 2, this is going to be your chance to get onto the mall, meet folks, look around. There's a lot happening on the mall. There's going to be a lot of quote-unquote teach-ins under several tents provided by several organizations for you to learn about various parts and different elements of science. This is going to be geared to the dyed-in-the-wool scientist who's working in the lab, as well as a young scientist who might be thinking about getting his or her feet wet in the field later in the future. It's meant to be very interactive. And then following this part of the activities, there will be speeches by March headliners. The names of those speakers is yet to be publicly revealed, but we do know we have 3 of the main headliners who have been in the news, including Bill Nye the Science Guy. But it's meant to be a really, again, a rallying point where folks can really get some good messages about how to take their science from the march and essentially keep the momentum going. And then thereafter, we're all going to get up on our feet and march around the Washington Memorial to the Capitol and back through the ellipse back to the Washington Memorial. So that's meant to be the main event on the mall. Following that, there is going to be a happy hour or 2 events. One of them is going to be a happy hour at the AAAS headquarters where we started everything off from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. There will be beverages, adults and non-adults, for you to enjoy, complimentary of AAAS. We invite you to come, charge your phone, rest your feet, have something to drink, meet your colleagues, and just get yourself rested and relaxed before heading out. Or if you want to continue your night, we invite you to join us for a special science-themed Stand Up for Science comedy show at a place called the Beer Baron, where there are 2 shows from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's going to be a really fun time. And this is an event that is really geared at AGU membership. So you'll probably see a lot of your friends and colleagues there. I do want to touch on the satellite marches. As I said, now I believe there are about 500 marches worldwide. What we're encouraging folks to do is a few-step process. If you, for example, are going to the Denver March, what we're encouraging you to do, go to marchforscience.com, click on your city's Facebook page, which will be on this map. There's a direct link to the Facebook page. And then when you go to that Facebook page, post a message and say, I'm an AGU member, and I'm looking for other folks in Denver to join me, and maybe propose a site where you might gather, a time, and activities you might bandy together and do, for example, to create a banner, or anything that you might do that might really draw some attention to your efforts. From there, we would also urge everyone who's attending a satellite march, please go to the main March for Science AGU website, which you see listed here. At the top of the presentation, there was a bit.ly link that was offered as well, so I wanted to share with you. Either of those will work. This is a great place for you to download 3 great March for Science posters. If you don't feel like creating one yourself, we've created 3 that you can download and take with you. And also, again, you can request some science is essential postcards, which you can take with you, have folks fill out, and send to your legislators. Finally, we would ask you to please use your social media accounts, take pictures, take video, make sure to tag us at the AGU, and use hashtag Science is Essential and Science March, and that way we'll pick up on them. And please, again, post those online so we can see what's going on in the march you're attending. Finally, I do want to again point everybody, regardless of where you're marching in DC or around the world, to the AGU website. This is your one-stop shop for the latest news and everything AGU March for Science related. I'm not going to go through the major list here, but again, you can see you can get everything from your posters and your hats to your postcards, but even more so things like ride sharing and other brochures. This is a constantly evolving site. As you come to it, and we will continually ask you to visit, there'll be new resources put up there to help you make the most of your March experience. So again, we hope that you'll have a great time wherever you're marching, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brittany.
Thanks, Josh. Great. So next up, we have Shane to talk to us about how the best ways to communicate your science.
Thanks, Brittany. So one of the core tenets of the March for Science and the various satellite marches is communicating the value of science and how important science is to society. And so no matter whether you're going to DC March or Satellite March or really any march at all, it's really important to be able to communicate the value of science and why science matters, and whether that's your research or labs or institutions or just maybe even your science message or any message for that matter. So I'm going to go over just briefly some general communication tips for before, during, and after the march. All right, so one of the first things you want to do, no matter what, is to think about your audience. And so if you're talking to friends, neighbors, community groups, policymakers, whoever, think about what do you want to get out of it and what do they want to get out of it. So what are your goals for talking to this audience? What's your group's goals? What do you think that they want to get from you? Think about the different components of this group. What are their demographics, their values, interests, concerns? Why does your message, whether you're talking about your research or science in general, why does it matter to this group? You don't want to be like this researcher here who is literally chasing folks, asking them to for the opportunity to tell them about their research. You want to think about why do they care? Why does this matter, or why would this matter to them? You want to be able to frame your message. And so what I mean by this, so framing is not necessarily convincing someone of anything. It's about presenting your message, your scientific knowledge in a context that's important to the audience. You really want to emphasize shared common values. So something like we all care about, and that's children's future, health, water, this important thing in your town or city, this hobby that you might have in common with them. Again, framing your message is a really great way to relate to whoever your audience is. And no matter who you're talking to or what your message is, you want to make sure that you're using language that is clear, concise, compelling, plain spoken. So if you're, say, if you're a researcher and you're talking to a non-scientist or even a fellow scientist who's in a different field, and you're using really technical terminology, you might think that they understand everything that you're saying, but that might not be the case. It might just be noise to them. So think about the way you're getting your message across, the words you're using, the language you're using. And a really great way to do this is to reduce the jargon that you use. Think about words with multiple meanings. So that's this PDF we have up here. And we have a ton more resources that you can peruse at our website. It's linked through the main March website and at the main Sharing Science website as well. All right, so with some basic communication tips, the next step is to think about who you're engaging with. And a really great way to start is to engage locally. Engage where you are, where you live, in your community. And there are a number of different institutions and organizations where you can do this. Volunteer at a nature center, science center, go give a talk to your Chamber of Congress, give a talk at a local library, business groups, Rotary clubs. I mean, this is just a very small sampling of the endless opportunities you have in your community to talk about your science, to talk about science in general, to spread your message about why science is essential. And so just remember that kind of with all this, with the march and being able to talk about your science, that politics is local. And the actions you take at a local level can reverberate the whole way up to national and federal level as well.
Thanks, Shane. So speaking of talking to your federal policymakers, I'm going to turn it over to Tamia now to talk about how to engage your legislators.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brittany. So one question that we get is, why should I even engage? And this can be completely understandable considering that Congress has an 11% approval rating. However, it may or may not surprise you that a majority of members of Congress are reelected. That's because members of Congress need to engage with their constituents to learn about their priorities and values. Whether you meet your member of Congress or tweet at them, we really encourage you to start that conversation with your legislator because your voice matters. So whether you're attending the march in DC or one of the satellite marches, AGU is making it super easy for you to engage now. Congress is in recess from now through April 22nd. This means that members of Congress are in their home districts learning more about the priorities and values of their constituents. This is a great time for you to engage. AGU is providing 10 opportunities to help you engage during the congressional recess. From tweeting at your legislator to learning how to hone your science message, we're providing tips and resources for you to speak up for science. Check out our website at sharingscience.agu.org/action, where you will find more details about the actions we hope you'll take with us. We'll be updating the site with more resources throughout the recess, so definitely check back. One opportunity in particular that you've heard about before in a previous slide, and that we just want to mention here because we're really excited about, is our Science is Essential postcards. The postcard is a great, fun way for you, your friends, and your family to tell your legislators how science benefits your local community. So if you go to our website, you'll have the ability to download the postcard or to request a bulk batch of postcards for a postcard party, let's say. So, beyond the march and after the recess, AGU is also offering a number of resources that you can use to talk about the value of science to your local community and your legislators. So here are some of the resources that are pictured here on this slide. For example, consider signing up for our Science Policy Alerts, which provides you with timely science policy updates and ways for you to take action. Also consider taking action with us through our Action Center. This allows you to do things like write your legislator about timely issues with just a click of a button. We have templates, talking points. You can change your message to tailor it to you and click a button and it's sent to your legislator. It's very, very easy. We also encourage you to consider joining our Sharing Science Network. This is a network that really allows you to learn more about tools and opportunities for sharing your science effectively to a variety of audiences, including legislators. Also think about checking out our websites, both the Sharing Science website and our Science Policy website. Because here at AGU, we have a number of toolkits that we've created for all of you to use to help you share your science and also to engage in the legislative process. As simple as following us on Twitter or even looking at some of our recent and upcoming webinars are great ways to get more great and timely information. So really encourage you to check those out. So here's a list of the resources with some links. These are resources that I covered in the last slide. Don't worry about writing any of this down. We will make sure to share this with you so you can easily click to these resources. But one last thing that I want to say before I pass it back is whether you live in the United States or outside the United States, we have resources for you. So I really encourage you to look at some of these links and really use some of these resources that we have to offer you. And the very last thing that I just want to reiterate is that your voice really matters. And if we want science to be a priority, then we need to talk about it locally and to our legislators on the state, local, federal level. So please use your voice. We need you to amplify our voice as an organization and really make the case for why science is essential.
Great, thanks, Tamia. So we actually had a request to scroll back to a previous slide, so I'm going to scroll back and then also ask Tamia the first question. So Michael asked, if your legislator is already strongly on your side, do they still appreciate all the contact?
Yes, the answer is most definitely. I think it's very important to reinforce what your priorities and your values are, particularly in science. It's something that I don't think comes up enough, in my opinion. Not to mention, it is also really great for you to reach out to your legislator and let them know when they're doing something you like. People think that they should only reach out when they have an issue or concern about something that their legislator is doing, or they want to change their mind. But making sure that your legislator knows that what they're doing, being a champion for science, is very important and you appreciate it, is really, really great. And it will help you start building a relationship with them because, for example, if they have a question about science, then maybe they can reach out to you as a scientist and get some more information about that.
So Gregory says, thanks for the CVDs I've done for the last 12 years' work. And I would say definitely, Gregory. So Josh, this next question is for you. I think it's a question about AGU leadership potentially being at the march in Vienna, Austria.
Yes. So Chris is going to be at the EGU March. So EGU this year and the March for Science, they do overlap. Chris will be there. She'll have a large banner in both German and also in English, which is going to say AGU on it, Science is Essential. There's going to be an event in the Sigmund Freud Park, which is, I believe, going to be at 2 o'clock in Vienna. For more information, again, what I would suggest you do is you get in contact with AGU. You can write to me, jspicer@agu.org, and we can provide you with some more information as it evolves. But there is going to be a gathering. Chris is also going to be able to address the entire collected member of folks who are going to be at the march in Austria. So if you are there for the EGU gathering, by all means, please come, show your support, march with our banner. Again, this is a worldwide effort, and it's going to need worldwide efforts and solutions.
Okay, great. Dawn says she'll look for Chris in Vienna. In regards to the teach-in tent, Josh, I guess people are wondering if they're going to have a kid focus or kind of what activities might be going on in these tents.
From what I understand, the tents are going to be broadly focused. There'll be some activities that are definitely going to be geared towards a younger set of attendees, some basic sciences, but then a lot of the conversation will be people who are going to talk very specifically about their research at a higher level. So I think what the fun of the event is that you're going to have a chance to wander around. There will be large visual billboards, electronic billboards, and I believe handouts as well that are going to tell you what's going on in each tent at different times, so you can plan your day and figure out what works best for you.
Okay, great. And we have a question from Neil. Are the events at AAAS open to non-AGU members?
Absolutely. By all means, please come. The events at AAAS are open to AGU members, AAAS members, friends, family. There will actually be 4 other organizations that are sharing the space with us there. So it's going to be a great opportunity not only to get to connect with AGU, but to meet some colleagues, make some new friendships. And again, I think it's going to be very powerful to see this large group of scientists and their supporters walk down together to the mall en masse. So by all means, everyone is welcome.
Okay, great. So I think this question might be for you, Shane. Seems to me that the people in the march will hold the same views that you do, and main communication will be through reporters who might interview you at the march. I would think that one needs a brief and catchy message.
Sure. So at the march itself, I'm sure that many individuals are going to have banners and signs and all kinds of really quick, catchy messages to try and get their point across as quick and as brief as possible, because you're completely right. There's going to be a lot of people there, and this is March for Support of Science. And you might get asked by a reporter to comment. Chances are you won't, just because of sheer numbers. But yeah, if you want to have a quick message ready, quick soundbite or something, that's always good to have. Something I would say, a lot of the communication tips that I suggested, we're also focusing on what after the march. So the march is kind of this catalyst that we're hoping that provides this point that starts conversations, that starts or I guess really builds on this momentum that we've been seeing. And so folks take the march and take all of the things that they've learned and all the things that they want to say and the support for science and carry that through. So hopefully, if you are out there and you want to communicate your science, you want to share your science, and you might not have the opportunity to do so to an audience you're choosing at the march, you do that after the march, because this is just, again, the first step in hopefully many.
Great, thanks, Shane. So someone is asking, where on the AGU webpage is there information on travel to the DC March from other communities?
Again, the best thing to do is to go to the main March page, which was in the presentation. And on the March page, you're going to find a link to some ride sharing. Again, this is being done through a private bus company, but a lot of different folks are getting together, banding together. It's a cheap option to get down to DC easily without dealing with a lot of traffic, and that, I think, is one of the best options. However, if you are within the metro area, do not take your car. Please use Metro. It's going to be a lot easier for everyone involved. Stay here, find someone maybe through, again, some sort of sharing situation in some fashion, because, again, we're expecting a large crowd. But just in general, if you are traveling down, there are a lot of ride-sharing services, and you'll find the one we've really partnered with on the website.
So Josh, what if you don't have a Facebook account?
That's a great question. So folks, if you don't have a Facebook account, the best thing to do is to go to the main March webpage. So again, that's going to be marchforscience.com. When you go to the main site, you're going to see a drop-down list which is going to say satellite marches. And that's going to bring up that map I showed you earlier, all the marches around the world. Click on any one of those marches, and most of them you'll see several options that pop up. For example, I'm looking on a march that's happening, I believe, in California, and they list, we're going to go back a little bit here so you can see what I'm talking about. Just one moment. There you go. So on that web page, any of those red dots, again, those are marches. Click on those, and that's where you'll find the link to the Facebook page. But I think without fail, each of them also have information about a direct link to a website, to other ways to contact some of the march organizers. So if you don't have a Facebook account, at least there's a website or maybe even an email. So in that way, you can be wrapped into the communications and get on board in some fashion.
So Josh, this is more of a logistical thing. Are there restrictions to what you can bring to the march in DC?
We haven't heard anything. You know, for folks who came down for the Women's March, there was a lot of chatter about you needed a small see-through backpack, you couldn't bring liquids. We haven't heard anything from the National Park Service about this. I think with the Women's March, a lot of the concern was that it was so close to the inauguration. That was why there were limitations placed by the Park Service, but we've not heard anything like that. However, just good march protocol, if you want to avoid any hassle, I would avoid bringing anything that it could be conceived of as a weapon, meaning if you're going to bring a sign, maybe not bring it on a large stick. Use something that's going to be a little bit more, I guess, gentle. So find a paper tube, find something else you can use. But we haven't heard any restrictions from the Park Service at this point.
Okay. So this is kind of a good question, I'd actually say. Is there any expectation that any groups will be in opposition to the march? Protesters, anti-science messages? I know I haven't heard anything, but I know you're closer to this, Josh. Yes,
and please jump in, folks. There is a pro-Donald Trump march that's going to happen on the same day, supposedly. This looks to be a very disorganized affair. All I've seen from them is a Facebook page. It's meant to be, quote unquote, at the Capitol building, but they do not have a permit for the Capitol building or the grounds around the Capitol building. The March for Science does. I do not anticipate there being, there may be a few stray folks out there who might have some kind of off-key messages, but as far as I know, there is no really well-organized, concerted counter-march that you'll encounter here. And again, just to really hammer home the points that everyone has made, is that this is a bipartisan march about science. This is not about politics in terms of supporting or denigrating any candidate. We can talk about policies that concern us, appointments that concern us, but we really are here to talk about the value of science and strong science.
Another logistical question.
Sure.
For meeting at AAAS, we're going to be inside the building, is that correct?
Correct.
Someone's concerned about the logistical nightmare that could possibly be if we met outside.
Yes, we're all going to be we're going to be inside. It's a large building. They've given us the auditorium and several of the other halls, so we are expecting a large group. So you might want to think about coming early, getting a seat, getting fueled up, but the building is open to us and should be able to accommodate a large number of folks.
Okay, I think this is going to be for both Josh and Tamia. So Robert is writing invitations to local politicians for his satellite march. Where or is there a cheat sheet of message points that he can use to communicate with them?
Yeah, so as far as inviting members of Congress, just contacting them in general, the first place I would point you to is sciencepolicy.agu.org/toolkits. You will find there a toolkit specifically for scheduling meetings, contacting your legislator, all about like finding their information, what things you should mention in your communication with them. That could be a super useful first place to go when reaching out to them. As far as messages, I'm assuming this is about like key messages about science. We also have on our science policy page a resources tab. This resource tab has a lot of great talking points about the value of science for things like national security, for the economy, for public health and wellness. And so if you want to kind of highlight some of the, all of science is valuable, but some of the high-level talking points that we use to communicate the value of science, that's a good place to get those talking points from.
The one point I would add to that, folks, is that, again, this is a nonpartisan march. The march organizers have made this very clear. There will be no one from any political party invited on the main stage in DC to speak. This is a march for scientists and their allies. We want to keep this, again, as neutral as possible. If you are organizing a march or hoping to organize a march, politicians are welcome to come to lend their support, but really the march organizers are hoping to keep this, again, a very bipartisan effort and are not looking for politicians to come and address the public.
Another thing that I would just say on that is when we're thinking about past the march, especially since there's congressional recess now, but there will be another one in August, that might be a good time to ask the representative of your district to just come to your research institution and see what you guys are doing and what kind of amazing science is going on there. So, even if this doesn't happen for this situation, I think that's something to really keep in mind and use for the August recess.
Great. We have a couple more questions. Josh, do we have any estimates about the number of marchers or what the presence is going to be like on the mall?
The march organizers have been very reticent to give out numbers, as folks can probably guess. We have a very large groundswell of support for the march, just indicated by folks who are liking the Facebook page. It's in the hundreds of thousands. There's no way to know from that how many folks are going to attend. Again, we're anticipating a large group, but we really don't know numbers at this point.
Okay, great. And, in addition to AAAS, what other organizations are really participating or stepping up for the march, at least I guess in the one in DC or around the world, if you know, Josh?
Let me see. So what's really, I think, heartening about this is well over 100 different organizations are supporting the march at this point. And again, what's great is if you go to the main March Facebook page, the main March website, which again is just marchforscience.com. And if you go to About, which is one of the drop-down menus, and Partners, you're going to see all the different organizations that are supporting the march. I'm going to name a few, and this is just literally skimming the top. I think you're going to find It's an incredibly deep, broad, and diverse coalition of organizations. So, of course, AGU and AAAS, there's Sigma Xi, the Paleontological Society, the Nature Conservancy, everything from, Research America, United Auto Workers, and then we get even deeper. So, I mean, it's really quite encouraging. Again, the diversity, Girls Who Code. I mean, it's an amazing outpouring of different organizations who are supporting the march and who are expected to have a presence across the world.
Great. So, Tania, this one I think is for you. Is the postcard campaign intended to target only legislators or also the White House?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we're going to be supporting you here in DC to send it to your legislator who represents your local community. One of the great things about the postcard, something that I think helps us to amplify our voice, is having stories on how science impacts your local community. So in that sense, it's very appropriate for your legislator. But if you have science messages of talking about the value of science and the benefit of science to your to the nation, I think those are good messages that you could also send to the White House.
Great. And I'll just make a plug as well. I mean, we've intended these for your federal legislators, but I think sending them to your local legislators is also not a bad idea. As we are kind of seeing more and more, you know, your federal legislators often start out in state and local politics. So building that relationship early can be a great, can really pay off. So I think that's all the questions we have for today. Oh, I think we have one more question. Are there a few examples of where science has been ignored that get messaged to people, that get people maybe to take action? I don't know, Shane. I guess, Michael, can you maybe kind of expand on your question?
I mean, the only thing I can think of, maybe this is going the wrong way, but it could be helpful nonetheless, is that we've been looking for some examples of not necessarily where science has been ignored, but some science success stories, right? So we're always looking for these types of things. I know, and I can, off the top of my head, I mean, we can point to things like your cell phone or Google or microwaves or these types of things. And so these are some, we encourage folks to, when talking with their legislator or with their neighbor or with a coworker, and trying to talk about the value of science. And there are so many examples of how science surrounds us every day and how science has impacted everyone's lives and how science is just, it's part of, I mean, look around you. And so these are really positive messages and examples of how science is really valuable. And so whether your message, whether you're trying to throw something on a sign for the march or whether you're trying to have a really deep conversation with someone, I think depending on your field or your area of interest, having some examples of where science has improved your life or has improved your audience's lives is always a good thing to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, so Michael did offer some clarifying. I think he was looking for places where we've seen a lack of attention paid to science, and I guess maybe a consequence as a result of that lack of attention.
I
mean, go ahead,
I guess I would say, I'm not sure if I have a specific example for that, but I do think that, to Shane's point, I think there's a lot of people that don't always make the connection about how science is done in the lab and then how that translates to things that they have in their life, as a result of science. That connection is not always made. And so I think that's an important thing that we should be talking about, is how science is done and how that ends up, bettering people's lives. I think it's also important to talk about how the federal research dollars that we use are training the next workforce, and that's going to solve issues of the future. So I think that's also another conversation that doesn't happen enough, and we should talk about more.
Yeah, I was in an event last week, and Rush Holt said that he thought the disconnect between society and science was that it doesn't seem relevant to people, and so we need to work harder to make science seem, I guess, real and alive for people. Make it real to their daily, day in and day out.
And just something I would add is that there are going to be examples of where some sort of entity ignored science, and there might have been a negative consequence of that. There's lots of stuff out there. What I would say is that rather than focusing on kind of, this is the bad thing that happened when you didn't listen to us, perhaps focus, and again, it's situational, but having a positive message, regardless of who you're talking to or what you are talking about, is usually much more well received by folks. So it's about, and this kind of goes back to the things this is Shane, I was talking about earlier, about having that personal connection, having those shared values, bringing people into your world, into your conversation. And so, sure, there are examples of when that scientific evidence was ignored and something negative happened, and that's out there, that's fact. But emphasizing the ways where science has been a benefit, emphasizing the ways, all of the great things we have because of science, that's almost without a doubt, that will resonate more with your audience, regardless of whether they agree with you 100% or they are completely opposed to you. So I'd say just focus more on the positive, because that's going to be a message that's more well received.
Great. Thank you, Shane. Any last comments from our panelists?
One thing that I feel like I've said this a lot, but it's worth repeating, is the March for Science is going to be a really great event. It's going to be a good time for you to communicate your science, to meet other people, but you shouldn't let that be the end of your engagement. Really think about honing your science message and writing for your local paper. Think about going to the district office for your legislator. Think about reaching out to family and friends and telling them about the science that you're doing. I mean, even tweeting at your legislator, which takes only, a minute or less, is something that you could be doing to engage. So just don't let this be the end of your engagement.
And if you are going to attend, this is Josh. In addition to what Tamia is saying, numbers do matter, particularly to this current administration. So this, again, is not just for scientists. Tell your friends, tell your colleagues, anyone who you're involved in your community, in a faith group, in any kind of a hiking group, anything that you are involved in where people might have a sympathetic ear, have them come out. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting. And it's a way of feeling like you're making a concrete difference. And it's just the start of the story. And the more we can say that this is a global enterprise and that we can defeat the narrative that this is just a bunch of elites, which is completely untrue, we're going to have a more powerful message, and we can really keep the ball rolling in a really good direction.
And I think we should wrap up by saying that AGU is here to support science and to continue to advocate for strong support of science. So we're doing that, but we need you and your voice. So really consider taking action with us, using some of our resources, and helping us make the case for science.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again to everyone who joined us today and to our panelists. And you should receive an email in the next couple of days with this recorded webinar. And if you have any questions, you know how to find us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.